Call meeting to order. Public Information and Customer Relations Committee meeting. Let's see. We have, I guess the first item would be approving the agenda.
Well, you don't have to approve.
We don't have to do that, okay.
No, the only thing you have to do is approve the minutes from the last
Okay,
meeting.
so first thing is public comment period. Do we have any public people here?
No, sir, we sure do not.
Doesn't look like it. Okay. And then we have the approval of the minutes from April 4th, 2017. Does everybody have a copy in front of them of the minutes?
I'll move to accept the minutes.
I second that.
Motion made to accept the minutes. All in favor? Signify by writing it up. Minutes have been approved from the April 4th committee meeting. So we can move on to discussion. So we have two items here under discussion on the agenda: proposed effective community engagement program. Mr. J. Sellers, first item.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. The beautiful thing is, in the process of researching the concept of an effective community engagement program, I stumbled across an EPA study that satisfies our needs. So the visual that we have pulled up here was specifically what you asked for. Give us an idea of, well, we'll just talk about the dots, the big bubbles, I think would be an easy way to refer to that. And if we numbered those, I'd like to say, where are we as far as the campaign is concerned? This document that was commissioned by the EPA fulfills the purpose of being able to identify the community's needs. In this case, the bubbles they have there: drought, flood, cost, and safety. We could sit here and think, right now, there's at least one of those, perhaps two of those, that would be a high priority bubble for us. The cost, we're about to move into a campaign regarding a rate revision, and then safety with the boil water advisory situation. And drought isn't, if we were to, there are more concerns than this, obviously, but if we just look at the four that the EPA addressed, is drought a concern for us now? It isn't on our short list of priorities, but it could be. We're in a situation even now where we should be enforcing a water restriction for irrigation use of our water, odd day, even day, that type of thing. And then, is flood a concern? Stepping into hurricane season, even as of yesterday, the day before, there's conversations that I've been getting into on Facebook, especially with people on the social media side, that are concerned that Glynn County as a whole, in which case we're included, is doing little to educate and prepare people for the coming hurricane season. I'm not going to speak to defending or having any opinion of the effectiveness of Glynn County EMA, because we're not Glynn County EMA. That's not our role. But as far as our responsibility to educate our customers on how we're being led towards preparing for the next big storm, because we could have one that's a higher level of devastation than Hurricane Matthew, plausible. So how do we prepare for that? Are we educating our customers on what we're doing to be prepared for their reentry? We could be seen certainly as a cause to the delay getting back onto St. Simon's Island, for instance. So just using those as examples of how do we march through these bubbles. Identify your community's needs, so we can discuss those things, and we can very practically talk about what we believe the public needs to hear about. And then the next big blue bubble: conduct surveys and focus groups, which we talked about recently. I believe this is only a year old. This is a fairly recent study, so it's not like an 8-track tape. I believe that they are well-intentioned in saying surveys and focus groups, but my perception of how we perform a survey and we perform or conduct a focus group is not necessarily the same as what they may mean. So let's discuss that, because essentially my idea that we spoke about in the last meeting and the meeting before was to have a roundtable discussion in here with the focus group, calling all volunteers, anybody that wants to talk to us about what's important to them. But I believe it was Chairman Elliott that had mentioned in particular that social media is the realm for that now. It's a lot easier to have conversations anytime, anywhere, if we create that environment in a social media context. We have a thread on our Facebook page that says these are the things that we're concerned about, what are the things that you're concerned about. So that may be something that we address through social media. And then we develop the message. So what are we saying to either support or refute? There are certainly misunderstandings in the community, project related, conservation related. This document here goes into very good detail on how other utilities have created those materials to educate and what means they've used to get the word out. You'll see some good examples, especially from American Water, the one represented there right in the middle. At about a penny a gallon, water is of great value. There are statements in here that I'll lead you to find yourself, where the EPA is essentially saying that if we educate the public that what they're getting out of our service is a great value, then they're willing to pay more to ensure that it continues to be a great value. And that may be the season that we're in, is how do we educate the public, aside from slapping people with a rate increase, to help them understand that there's a reason for the rate increase. And I believe this is going to continue our Thursday commission meeting, where anybody's hearing anything about that so far, but even this Thursday, we're going to start laying out the plans for the town hall meetings. So how do we be more prepared with that? Information that we put out on social media, advertising that we do. Thus far, we have done no advertising this fiscal year related to that, and we have money in the budget to have advertising campaigns in next year's budget. But then once we have those materials prepared and how we're going to communicate that, then the next bubble is communicate your message. To get out front and center. I would say American Water is another good example of they use billboards that are put up in front of projects similar to what we did for the 2032 project. Once we started working down Frederica Road, I put the brochure holders like the real estate agents use, and that was very effective. I put out 7, and I can tell you 3 or 4 that were highly used, and I would go to collect the previous map and briefing update from that project on Frederica, and some boxes would be empty and some boxes would be full. And especially on the foot traffic, the highly trafficked area, the sidewalk, those guys just jumped out of the boxes. I believe people are interested. And if we've identified that we have citizens that don't go to our website, that's an easy answer. No, not everybody's going to the website. And we have citizens that don't go to Facebook. We have citizens that don't look at Twitter. But we do have citizens, ratepayers, that read the newspaper and that do travel up and down the project area. And so being more proactive and getting that message out, something that we can tailor and we can get out there and make it timely and accurate. That's important. Public events and interactions. We certainly could set up a booth at any public event and be represented as well as Glynn County or the city of Brunswick. It's pretty common when there's events in Mary Ross for a fire truck to be there. So we may want to have an excavator, have some heavy equipment, pull the key out, let the kids play on it. Give them an opportunity to get a sense of what we do. And we can do that, especially in the social media realm, by doing videos. When we had the roundabout work, I was there recording that live. Not the most effective way to illustrate because there's a lot of noise in the work that was going on there, but we do go to the College Coastal Georgia and set up a booth. Typically, I missed the one this semester so far. And in the fall, we gear up for that, and we represent the JWSC in doing some hiring moves as we have the applications there. And right now, we have more administrative jobs than we've had in the past, so it is helpful to get into college. And we have a long list of operations, field jobs. There aren't too many college graduate or even pending college graduates that are anxious to sling a shovel, but still we get that opportunity to speak to them about it. Social media. So we've covered that. I believe that we're plugged in, but what we don't do well, and this is on me entirely, is communicating a consistent message. We post the boil water advisories, the job opportunities, I believe the opportunities to bid are posted on there, but it's not active. It's a very passive, automatic process. Whenever you post to our website, there's a mechanism that allows that to feed right over to Facebook. And occasionally, if we have good projects in the field that allow me to get some photographs, I'll put that on Facebook as well. And then website and mobile apps. We've discussed having a mobile app in the past, especially when it comes to the billing side. Obviously, if we had the website firing on all cylinders and people were anxious to pay online, then investing, because there's a cost involved, investing in an application to process that would be handy. Does the Pinnacle have an app?
No, the portal within Enterprise can be put on multiple devices.
It's kind of a fancy way to say there's an app for that, but essentially if you go to our website, it should have the same functionality as having the app regardless. So we'll have that availability. But nevertheless, so this is an idea, I believe, of that campaign fully funded by your tax dollars, ready to rock. So since the EPA has done the heavy lifting for that, I'd like to consider using this as a guide, at least until we find out if it's effective for us. It's not obviously tailor-made, but it didn't cost us anything either. So we could hire somebody to take us to the next level if we perhaps give it a year. Just a suggestion. If we say, let's march through these bubbles and see if we can effectively do some of those things and those things that we can't do in-house. I have a limited skill set, but we have companies in town that would be able to do the social media side of things that they have a broader skill set. So we may be able to have a consultant give us advice on taking it to the next level.
And to that end, have we made any more contacts with the folks from Atlanta that you've reached out to?
Yes, sir.
What are we hearing back from them?
How deep are your pockets? So they're not working for free. To make the trip down, they would like to give us a presentation, but they'd like to see a commitment too. So long term, I think that would be beneficial if we had a consistent branding strategy. Even a local company gave us a quote of $10,000 for a branding strategy, but it was along the lines of every document that leaves our organization should look and feel the same. The logo, if we had a mascot, that type of thing should be very consistent. So that was a local company saying $10,000. You can imagine if we were flying the folks down from Atlanta to do the same, it would be substantially more expensive, so worth considering. And then JEA
Well, what I was
uses
gonna say
a
is,
company in Jacksonville.
yeah, and that's a whole nother realm with the amount of customers they have, but I can tell you, I've been to a couple of different events. One was like a water first type event, so it was, different water utility authorities, and one section of that was like the public education and the value of the agency. Cobb Marietta Water was there, Macon Water, Clayton County Water, and one of the things they suggested is you're never gonna have enough staff to run this like the way a PR agency was. So there's a lot of these things like in the toolkit that Jay has here, that from content and different initiatives, you just kind of like copy and paste and use those. Because their thing was, it's better to get started small and start doing at least a couple of these things pretty good, instead of thinking that like all in one day, you're just gonna like flip a switch and have a perfect polished program. Because it's not gonna be cost prohibitive. Plus, you're gonna wanna learn as you go what resonates with your market. So I heard
Well,
that there, and also at Government Communicators Conference, it was kind of the same thing.
Well, let me ask, since you guys have had a little experience with that, one of the things that I mentioned to Jay when we talked about pulling a PR firm into QA, QC our ideas, even if it meant a little bit of money, but it sounds like a little bit, there's a whole bunch even to do that. With that being said, one of the issues that I'm concerned about is, I think I have a notion of what the message ought to be, what we need to get out there in terms of what we want to communicate in the big picture sense. I'm not talking immediate needs like, boil water works and things. I'm talking in the big picture sense. But in the big picture sense, one of the things I wanted help with is understanding what the community's perceptions are of us, and how do you do that in a small, very not so densely populated county like ours? Is there a mechanism or a means to do the surveys to figure out, okay, what is the overall community perception? And from there, know where our work is cut out for us and what we got to do.
Obviously, there's a whole field of study going into surveys, and I could write 10 survey questions that answer a question, but we guide people to that. And I can't remember the academic term for that. It's biased. So how can we get an unbiased survey? I believe that it would be a good first step, and especially the first bubble. We know our community's needs, and then if we conduct surveys and focus groups, I'd like to bring a professional survey team in that can write a survey in such a way that it's not going to have that bias towards telling us what we want to hear, if that's the right way to say that.
And then talk to us about how to get the survey out there, because that's one of my other concerns is people don't have phones like they used to. It's not the same. We don't have a local TV show. I don't know how we're going to, canvass people in a representative way.
That's what we were just saying.
Right. The bill stuffer is we're already sending it, let's go ahead and put something in there. And so that's one
That's
method.
one thing, but there's probably a couple other ways.
But even the bill stuffers, I mean, I've gone through some of this, and I'm telling you, man, I don't know, unless you say there's a $5 bill waiting for you when you go out to your mailbox
Well, it's
to
gotta
fill
be
out
more
the
than
survey, they don't read it.
No, sir.
Bill stuffers are just,
Yeah, so let me throw that away for you. That's what it
give the
is.
garbage man something to do.
We had considered a few years back using SurveyMonkey, a very popular platform for doing free to an extent. We could give that kind of a soft opening. We could go ahead and try that, put a banner on the website that says, please click here. And some people are so anxious to be plugged in, they'll do that because they want their vote to count. So I believe that would be one of those situations where we give them the opportunity and see where it goes.
And that's why I wanted a professional firm to look at how we conducted the survey, because one of the things I don't want is somebody to write a biased survey that's going to steer people to the right answer for us. I don't know what that answer would be that we would steer them to. I want the honest answer. But the other piece is, how do we make sure we're getting a true blend of the community as opposed to just the people that have gripes? Because
Right.
one thing you know, the people that will spend the energy to come get their opinion out there are the people that have a gripe, not the people that have a good opinion of what's going on. They don't ever spend the time to get out there. It's the ones that have a problem, and we'll think we're doomed based on those results. I'm just saying.
And it's one thing to, like a very broad question that we see might be something that says, are you satisfied with the service you're getting from the JWSC? If you had that as a yes or no, or if you had that as a grade scale, it means a lot less than if you had a block at the bottom that says, tell me what we're not doing right. And those that are very vocal about it, and I'm surprised we don't have a representative of the public here today, but those that do speak into that tend to be very few, the vocal minority. And then most that are simply satisfied and well, like I've been prone to say, I'd love to believe that anybody that could choose any other utility would rather do business with us. But how do we gauge that? How do we say that they are loyal to us if another company was across the street that they could tie into? So we need to get there. It'd be nice to have somebody that can help guide us. So it would be something to consider. And obviously on the social media side, once we have our message developed, there are companies, even in town, that have the expertise and the experience to roll that message out in such a way that it's attractive and people respond to it well. And then we, just like the image shows, we start all over again. Engage the community again to increase the value of your message. Kind of goes back to the first meeting where we discussed, well, what really is the message? If our message is, our prime objective is to ensure that your water is safe to drink and the sewage gets treated in an economically and environmentally friendly manner, something like that, just paraphrasing. Everything that we do should support that. So roll right into identifying your community's needs from that. If people don't believe that we believe that or that we're practicing it, then they're not going to listen to anything else we say. So any questions about?
Have we got anywhere written a plan that incorporates this stuff and says what's under those bubbles of what's important to us?
this discussion is step one of that plan. I'd like to say that if we adopted this, then it gives us a framework.
I'm not on that island with you right now.
Okay. Well, there's otherwise shifting winds and we go wherever the wind blows.
Part of, I take my own experience, because that's kind of what I know best, on why I'm a commissioner. And I was satisfied with my service. I wasn't satisfied that I was getting a rate increase. And I looked at the numbers, and I asked a commissioner, and he couldn't explain it to me. So, one of the ladies I worked with said, well, they're gonna appoint people to be a commissioner. Why don't you try to get one of those appointments? So, being retired, not knowing what else to do, I did. And I think I've been pretty engaged for the last 4 years. What is important to the customer in the services we render? What is important to our other people that we provide services to? And that is the people who do development, the people who build and run restaurants. So what is it that we want from them that we need to communicate to them why they should freely give of their resources?
I'd say you do agree with this. You're on bubble one.
All right.
Identify your customers' needs. This, to me,
Okay.
is just a good
All right.
benchmark.
And that's what I'm kind of looking for. And then the developer, what is his needs? What do we want from him? Now, we're getting ready to rock their world. How is that message going to get translated to them when we, again, raise tap fees? Number two, if the commission approves it, we're going to charge for our services, which they've gotten for free.
Oh, that's right.
So you're on bubble three. So we're working this organically. So you're developing the message.
Okay?
And then how do we communicate that message? How are we going to communicate? Thus far, we've followed a very rigid approach. We're going to have town hall meetings in which we're going to
Well,
alert you.
I think that the town hall meetings are a requirement of our operating agreement.
So we're doing the bare
We have
minimum.
to look at what that says. But that's kind of what I'm looking for you to provide us. I would see, if you want to use this framework and say that this does meet our needs, then start to take this thing and put it together and tell me how it all fits.
Could I paraphrase?
Sure.
Are you saying take this program, flesh out the steps we, Joint Water and Sewer Commission, will use to address each of the bubbles and work our way through the process? Am I saying what you're intending?
Well, that's kind of where I'm going, if that's what you're gonna do. But I think you need to, it can't be words out there that we say. They need to be words in a document that forms a plan that the commissioners and yourself and your staff all understand that this is where we're going and how we're gonna go through. And I think once you get that portion of it done, then you talk about how you're gonna communicate that plan.
And that's all part of this
Yeah,
effort?
I'm not saying that the EPA did wrong, but I'm just saying it needs to be tailored to us.
It's not specific.
Well, if you read, I would recommend you read this. You've so far seen one slide out of,
Well, I got it,
right, so
got a clock,
26.
so, or two of them.
Right, you get the idea is that this is an example of one of the campaigns that they ran. So out with the old, in with the new. That's the fine print. We're replacing 2,240 feet of aging pipe in your neighborhood, your water bill at work. When the 2032 project began, I sat in Todd's office with he and Colonel Boland, and we spent about 4 hours, literally 4 hours, massaging the message that goes into the bottom half of that update that goes out every 2 weeks. So that was one message that was communicated, and that message is very thorough in an attempt to squash any rumors or suspicion on why we were doing it. People still say, oh, you're trying to accommodate development on the north end. No, the message is clearly stated in there that we're trying to satisfy the existing customers. Because if we don't do this, we're already short on capacity. So that was this type of campaign, we just didn't have the pretty visual. So, in support of this, like I say, we'd already been doing it organically. Identify your customers' needs. Really that would be a cost or a safety as far as that infrastructure development goes. Did we conduct surveys and focus groups? No. Did we develop the message? Yes. Did we communicate the message? Yes. Was that communicated effectively? In a sense. It's hard to gauge how bad things could have gone because we didn't have a repeat of Carmageddon, the 2030 project. So we didn't have that type of drama with the 2032 project. I'd love to say that we have done everything right. The project is almost done. What could we have done differently? Now, if we back this up and we say, did we do public events and interactions? We didn't advertise too well that we were having the project meetings in the public, for the public. We did have some public show up early on, but after that it was not that well communicated. Social media, it plugs over to social media, but we weren't being too active with it. Website, mobile apps, nothing there. Will we conduct a survey and a focus group on every single advertising campaign? Debatable. We may skip bubble 2. But just using this as a guide, more or less, would we be able to tailor this type of material for our organization? I believe so.
Well, I think so too. I think we can, like Chairman said, you gotta squeeze it down to, like I said, tailor to what our community want to hear and what you can put out there. I think I've looked at some of these things that they do, other communities have done.
Yes, sir.
And some of them will work well with our community, some of them will not. But it all depends. And that's for you to decide that it's going to work or just these programs not going to work. So I think if you tell us exactly which ones you're going to hit, I'm going to do this, and I do this, and I'm going to do this, then those things will be, I think, beneficial for us to make sure that we get it out to our community the way we should.
Certainly.
So more, again, the details
Yeah,
of what we're planning.
Right.
Right.
I think if you start fleshing out some of the details, I think you found a real nugget here
I
of
think so, too.
information. You did some good research and found a good nugget here that we have a starting point, and we don't have to reinvent the wheel.
Right.
We can tailor it for our system.
Right.
And as you start fleshing out the details of the first bubble, identify your community's needs, what we're really saying is we're identifying the needs of this program, and we make a list of those, and we understand just what are the different needs that we're trying to provide information on to the public. Then that information will dictate which of these bubbles actually fall out into our program. So there may be another one that's radio, and there may be another one that's stuffing bills.
It's a good
Those are all-
kit, kind of an idiot's guide. Right.
Yeah, it's a great start. I'd like to see the first bubble fleshed out now, and for
Yes, sir.
us to have a definition of some of the things we want, or all of the things we can think of that we're going to be communicating with the public about.
Indeed.
We've got some already. We know boil water advisory. That's in that bubble.
Yes, sir. And that brings us to discussion too. It's essentially one of those needs. Communications. We are getting better at communicating in advance the projects that we're working on, and that's going to continue getting better. I believe that people are starting to look to us for the information. It's slow getting it from the paper of record. If you're going to go to the Brunswick News, the Islander, any other local print media, you're not going to get the timely message that you need, especially if it's a water outage or a full water advisory. So if we have nothing else to discuss here, then I'll suggest for the next meeting that I communicate some of those needs and see what campaigns we can get started.
I think that's great, and if you want to, I mean, if you want to put a,
Out in the field that we don't necessarily hear if you're in the office either.
Well, I think that,
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
that there's our needs that falls in that, that's the problem I'm having with the way this thing is worded, identify your community's needs. We have needs that we need community support. And then the community has needs in which we need to support them. And that's, somehow we need to kind of quicker that into this model. If you understand how I'm segregating those two
you know, the
out.
needs are coming from two different directions.
Yes.
And we have the responsibility to meet them all the best we can. For example, the rate increase.
That's right.
Another item, just an overall message that I know you want to cast to the public, but what we're attempting to do, because Joint Water and Sewer does a great job at what they're doing out here. They're providing clean water. It's in a lot of cases, it's such a thankless job. And we want the community to understand that and know that we're the guys, and I use the white hat, black hat example, we're the guys with the white hats. We're not the guys with the black hats. And we just want to cast that message to our community in general.
That's that cost message. Why does the cost have to go up? And it's a lot easier for speculation than it is for people to really hear the tough truth. And we haven't communicated that truth outside of the commission meetings.
It costs a lot to keep it safe and available.
Now, what did I get beat up over, since I want to go down this road a little farther? In last year's town hall meetings, what was the audience that was there?
Developers,
Yeah, and what was their big issue?
you're looking for, let's see, what was the direct quote from one that,
Stifling economic growth.
yeah, you're stifling economic growth.
Okay? And nothing that I said could ever change that. Either I was a poor communicator, which is probably true,
No, you know, one of the things,
but we got to change that this time.
I mean, at some point, you gotta pay what it costs to get the deed done, or eventually, nobody gets what they need done.
That's right.
And how do you avoid having in dealing with social media, it's kind of the same sense as a town hall, is that people have their mind made up before the meeting starts. And you are walking into a room of bees that
Well,
are
I
already.
obviously didn't prep the battlefield properly.
So, and I suppose that's some of what we have to do is before the town hall
That's
meeting,
what
get the word
you
out.
need to think about in this context, totally, is because we have to give both ways. But I would measure your success, and I would give you a 5. If when we finish the town hall meetings, we have developers writing out checks to us at the end, do you need $100,000 or $1 million?
I'm under a lot of pressure now. Are they going to be anxious? Oh, it's, it kind of turns into the cliche about, I won't mention any specific cliches, but are they going to be anxious to give us the money at the end of that meeting? That's
Or
going to
at
be a
least
challenge.
willing without killing somebody.
Right. Because this time last year, in your mind, it was a foregone conclusion. That was the speculation. But people showed up anyway because they wanted to talk you out of it.
Well, they can talk us out of it.
In a sense, because we had the option to do a 1, a 3, and a,
One step versus a
Right.
3-step.
or a 5-step even. Was it the 5? It was the,
Well, commissioners need to make that decision again this year, but it's gonna depend on what happens in our message to the community
Well, that may be a message we put out beforehand, is the town hall is an opportunity for them to hear the options. If we have options, I'm not even speculating that we have options. But if we did have options and they were given that.
Or for them to bring us options, if the ones we're presenting aren't the ones that,
Then it's not a meeting full of people that are just shocked and in awe of, that there's going to be an increase, but they're there to be part of the conversation of which option is the most viable to the community, for instance. So that might be a message we put out before the town hall.
I mean, you have to advertise everything, but the odds that somebody's necessarily reading what everything is and understand it at a level that we all do to be able to come and talk. But, I mean, the town hall is the day for them to speak their piece and give their feedback.
to what Jay's saying though, you're right. Do we preemptively, like, maybe that's what you're saying, Chairman? We preemptively get messages out there. So the folks that are most interested and most likely to be showing up to gripe, because those are the folks that are energized, see our perspective and see the situation and come prepared with, okay, it's not the perfect solution for me, but what else can be done? Instead of just coming in, almost cold with a the opinions already set in stone,
Ready to throw shoes.
ready to throw their shoes.
But that's what happened last year. People came in prepared, and so much so that from the first word out of your mouth, I think everybody was prepared to attack. Perhaps that won't happen this year because they've already been trained after last year to know that,
We shut them down.
right, you did the best you could to keep the peace, but in the end, things happened the way they had to happen.
Well, do you think, did I miss the point there? Do we want to try to get some messaging out in advance?
I think, yeah. I mean, we're talking about, this should be a long-term reason.
Oh, right.
I know,
Right?
but in the near
you're just
term.
taking the short term on this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think getting messages out.
That's one of the items in the first bubble.
Right.
Figuring out what is it that we're communicating.
And there's definitely an unknown. There's a huge question mark in the community over why the increase. And to be able to illustrate that goes beyond what happens on Thursday. How do we get that word out visually before the town hall?
Why don't we just
So,
circle the wagons, you and I and some of the staff like was suggested, and we'll invite the commissioners as well.
I mean, to interject here into your thinking, I think a comprehensive state of the state or state of the sewer is important, and what your plan is over the next 5 years to fix this.
Or you mean our current plan?
That's right, you need to tell them, this is what's broken. This is my plan, and I need you to buy into it,
Okay.
that this is what I'm gonna do 1 July with the new budget, and what I'm gonna do all of fiscal year 2019, or 18, excuse me. Okay? And then next year, we're gonna come into you with this kind of resource and effort, and this is what we're gonna do in 2019. The more specifics people have, it gives them ammunition to shoot at you with, but they understand that you got a plan and you're headed down a direction. You know, we're going to have to get a bond to fix Academy Creek and Dunbar
And we
Creek.
may
That
have-
is going to result in us having to raise the debt portion of the bill. We're going to offset that debt portion of the bill by reducing how much we're getting for R&R. Those are the kinds of specifics that you need to tell them.
we'll set a meeting or a workshop to try to do some preemptive messaging or develop some preemptive messaging in advance of which is a piece of this bigger picture. Needs some other steps to be done.
Some of us, like man in the street, if a reporter wants to illustrate that somebody broke into a house, they don't have a talking head. They say, oh, let's go to Jimmy Junkin on Frederica Road that's going to tell us about 2032. And then you have a guy walking down the sidewalk saying, there's a reason why. Well, for starters, like we talked about in staff meeting last week, there's a reason why the sidewalk isn't paved on Frederica Road, because it's not time yet. There's a reason why certain things are happening in certain
That's a good point.
means or certain methods. But we don't illustrate that well when it's just a bunch of words on the page, and people aren't reading the website, and they're not getting that news. So perhaps, since it is a visual culture, if we record Mr. Junkin walking down Frederica Road saying this is where we are, we have the technology, we have the heart, we just have to have the time. So if we get out there and we record that, and Mario could go out there with us and run the camera while we're just walking and talking, and people might receive that better. If we put that out on social media, then people can either love it or hate it. And then they know why. Because I can jump into a group on Facebook and say, well, this is why the sidewalk isn't done yet, because it's not ready yet, it's not time. But perhaps there's another way to say that instead of just the back and forth on the Facebook group.
I think we got some things to definitely address and attack with the discussion we've had.
And if we're not cute enough on camera, Colonel Bolden might be available.
Good point.
Can take him out.
Good point.
Okay.
Good discussion.
Thank you very much.
You ready for item 2?
Item 2, yes, sir. So let's talk about identify your community's needs, the safety bubble. So one of the largest concerns that we've had, especially since December, due to the increase in the bull water advisory notifications, is that staff's been researching options for implementing an emergency notification program. And that system, we talked at the town hall meeting on St. Simon's Island about, that system is costly. It's going to cost money, real money, when we send out that notification. So we met with Glynn County EMA and 911 staff members Monday of last week, and we wanted to have an understanding of the cost involved with using the Code Red system that Glynn County has. Code Red is a contract that they've had since, I believe, going back as far as 2007. I believe that was the number that was given. We had a memorandum of agreement with Glynn County that ran from 2012 to 2015 that I don't believe we ever took advantage of, but that would allow us to send messages out through the Glynn County Code Red system to their 30,000 subscribers at the cost of 33 cents a minute. So on that note, think of the emergency communications like a cell phone contract, and each boil water advisory that we send out, depending on the method, would be potentially 300 to 30,000 subscribers, and depending on the affected service area and the subscriber's notification preference. So the subscriber would choose whether they wanted to receive messages that are intended just for a specific area that we can outline on a map, whether that notice goes out to everybody of a particular service district. That's what we wanted to do during Hurricane Matthew for the St. Simons district during the bull water advisory following Hurricane Matthew. Or we could send a message out to everybody that's subscribed to the system. So if you think about that phone contract, and those of you that have been around long enough to remember when there was no such thing as unlimited calling, no such thing as unlimited text, and everything had a cost associated to it. You might have a base fee, then pay for minutes. Each notification, think of each subscriber, each person as 1 minute. And it's literally one person would now not be 33 cents. They've since upgraded their contract to accommodate up to 100,000 minutes per year at $16,000. And each notification is 25 cents. Now that math doesn't work out exactly for the 100,000 into the 16,000, but they pay the retainer. So Glynn County is already on the hook for $16,000 a year for 100,000 minutes. And they're asking for us to buy into the 16,000 and then pay for our portion of the minutes over that. And we looked at that service, considered that. One of their biggest competitors is a company called Swift Reach, and they have a similar pricing structure. We have a base fee and we have a per minute fee. And with the potential cost of the per minute services being so high and fairly unpredictable, I have no control over the bull water advisory frequency. Because though I'd like to say that it's all old system, and we could say this is where we have galvanized lines, half of what we've seen so far is a new system, less than 10 years old, and on C900 PVC. So we have some material failures, we have some manufacturing defects that were frankly avoidable had we known that there was a problem with that. It's just like buying an expensive toaster. When you have a big piece of pipe that decides to split down the middle because of a material defect, we can't tell that looking at the dirt. But then the alternative to that would be those that are caused by contractors. We have two flavors of those. We have those where we've marked the line and they've hit it, then they pay for it. We had one recently where we didn't mark the line and a contractor hit it, and that's on us. And then we had one where a customer that was putting in a mailbox hit a 2-inch main downtown with a pair of post hole diggers. So all of those situations that require a boil water advisory following the standards put out by EPA and EPD mean that we have to communicate with the customer as rapidly as we can, and though it would seem that the most reasonable thing would be, from their perspective, to put out a doorknob notice, that's not likely to happen. So these emergency notification systems give us the means to use either their cell phone, their home phone, their email, or text, and have that shot out to them as quick as possible. And the same amount of time that it takes for me to prepare the post for the website, we could have that notice sent out to the customer. But knowing that we don't know how frequent these are going to occur, it gave me a lot of heartburn dealing with a system that charges me a base fee and then a per minute fee. Because I have no idea whether this next main is going to affect 300 people and have a very minimal cost, or 3,000 people and have a higher cost. I'd rather have the unlimited contract. So we did look at a service that has the unlimited plan. And it's sorry.
Excuse me, before you go on?
Yes, sir.
Could I interrupt you so that everybody understands the code red system
Yes, sir.
that you described? I don't know that they understood how expensive it really is. What you told us is that we have to pay 25 cents for every text that we send out. Is that right?
Yes, sir. Essentially, after paying, and the math gets a little complicated only in the sense that we can't predict how often it would happen, but if there were 5 subscribers and we were covered for 3, then I'd have to spend 50 cents to cover the other 2 of you, just as a simple math. But if I did that 2 to 3 times per week, that starts to add up at such a rapid rate that it means that we're either going to be paying hundreds of thousands of dollars in unexpected expense, or we narrow down our notification policy to the point where we're notifying the fewest number of people. And then that would mean, well, to paint a pretty broad picture, if, in the example that we've used in conversations about that before, let's say you don't live in Glynn County, but your mother lives in Magnolia Manor, and you want to be the person that's notified if there's a boil water advisory because she has no idea what that means, or perhaps it's in a rental house or you have a vacation home. If you're outside of the service area and you're signed up for that service, we are then paying 25 cents per notification for somebody that's not even a ratepayer. Perhaps they are a ratepayer if they have a rental house here, but if I wanted to cut that person out, then I'm doing somebody a disservice from the safety standpoint because I'm not allowing them to be notified because they're not directly paying for the service, if that's the best example.
So on one end of the scale, the exposure is, if you had to notify 30,000 customers, then it's 25 cents times 30,000 is the bill for that one notification?
Yes, sir.
And on the other end of the scale is probably what's more often reasonable, that you might have to notify a much smaller group of people, maybe 50, 100?
50, if it's a neighborhood of 50. Anguilla is a good example. There were 250 people that were affected by the boil water advisory caused by a main break on Kings Way, and which really sparked this conversation more so than the Fletsy boil water advisory, Fletsy boil water advisory about a year ago, and then we had Hurricane Matthew affecting the entire St. Simons district. But Anguilla would have been 250 or so. But the problem there is, what if you didn't live in that neighborhood but you wanted to get notified? Well, we would be saying financially, because we want to keep our costs down, that we're only going to notify those people that we circle in the map. I'd rather go the opposite way and give the customer the option of getting notification regardless of where they live. By default, we could set up somebody with notification, basically a checkbox on the preferences side when they go to sign into this service. You want to only get notified if it affects you personally, or you want to be notified if it affects your district, St. Simons, mainland, South mainland, or if you want to get notified if it affects any district on our system.
So we have the code red system available to us.
We do have code red available if we renew the memorandum of agreement, that we would pay a portion of those charges, and then that's the per minute fee.
And if we were to use it, it would cost us somewhere in the neighborhood of thousands to hundreds of thousands of dollars per year
Correct.
to use that system.
Correct.
To notify, so we're talking about a pretty big chunk of money.
Very hard to predict something that unpredictable. So we were approached by a company called Everbridge, and Everbridge, seeing the volume of boil water advisories that we've been putting out since December, they weren't nervous. They said, we would like to give you a quote of $19,000 and change per year based on the number of customers that you have. So for our 30,000 customer base, we could send out an unlimited number of notifications. Doesn't matter how many times we do it per week. We could do the boil water advisory and the all clear. We could do road closures. We could do meeting announcements. We could set up categories so the customer can subscribe to receive those, even if, well, I should say, not even customer, citizen of any sort, because at that point, they give us the ability to send out more than our customer base. So if we have people that are outside of our service area, or want to have duplicates in the system, we can have all types of different options for them to receive that notification, and the cost wouldn't go up. So we would have a year-to-year contract. We would be able to renew that contract for 4 years under the same $19,000 and change rate. And then after 5 years, they would look at our customer base size and adjust accordingly. So we'd be able to renegotiate after 5 years.
I particularly like that option because it does give us flexibility to communicate immediate messages of need in the community. You know, when you think about, we've got a planned outage for your neighborhood tomorrow because we're going to be in there replacing pipe, even in advance of the real issue. It's planned. We know we're going to block the road. You're going to be out of water. Whatever those cases are, I love the flexibility to be able to do that without having to worry about the expense. And this is one Jay shared with me, that it's got enough meat in it, beef in it, that we could actually, Jay suggested we give the county a 6-month trial at the latter part of our 1-year trial with them. Let them dual track their code red versus the one we're using.
Right, in fact, that's a good tangent to mention that they're about to put out an RFP for their own notification system. So to partner with them would be slightly hazardous, because 6 months from now, we don't know what system they're going to be using. So I'd rather have ours up and going and have control over the data so that we can be sure that we're having a consistent delivery of those messages over the next year.
And what was the name of this system?
Everbridge.
Everbridge. And so Everbridge gives you much more flexibility and unlimited usage.
Yes, sir.
For a price tag, a fixed price of $19,000 plus some change per year.
Yes, sir.
And when we were-
Versus a risk of hundreds of thousands.
So I think what I heard too is for 19 grand a year, we can try one of these products, see what it gives us, but we won't pay any more than 19 grand in the next year.
Correct.
And you're not obligated after that 1 year.
Correct.
So you could use that 19 grand to communicate, but also assess what your real needs are,
Right.
get some
Yeah.
history, so that when we're ready to maybe look at other options, we even have something to talk to someone about. Because right now, I mean, you know, we just recently started communicating these boil water advisories. You know, that number could be here or there. So even if somebody were to be giving us proposals on all this, they're just all best guesses and numbers right now. So you'll like show a year's worth of history, that will be better when you go back to the marketplace.
Exactly. They also provide the management portal, which is a beautiful thing because John can give me all the data that he wants to out of the billing software for customers' present email address and phone number. I've already spoken to Everbridge about, hey, I don't know what this number is. It might be a cell phone, it might be a home phone. No worry, they're gonna send out an introduction message. If we roll with this, it'll take about 3 weeks to set up and train. And then after that 3-week period, let's say a month from now, we send out a message, oh, and I'd like to put in a bill stuffer if we have the time. Time it to where we can notify the customer, you're about to be opted, you're gonna have to opt out. That's the thing.
You're gonna have to opt into the bigger, because remember, our discussion yesterday
Right.
was,
Oh,
for the
right.
time being,
The service.
we drill into the
Right.
people that are
The
actually
smallest.
affected.
Right, there's two ways to
You
look at
want
that.
more information, you wanna know anytime there's anything going
Right.
on, you have to opt into that.
Right.
Otherwise, we give you a little, and you can opt out of that.
Right.
We're gonna give you the little.
All the customers are on the opt-out program. If you're
Right.
presently a customer with us, you have no choice. You're gonna get the minimum notification, which will be drilling down to your neighborhood. So by default, in order to be compliant with, well, the wishes of EPA and EPD, but keep in mind, they haven't told us specifically what we need to do. The phrase, communicate with the customer in a timely manner is fairly broad. So timely isn't the newspaper. Timely is better a knock on the door. But how do we meet in the middle? Meet in the middle would be if your neighborhood is affected by a boil water advisory, you have no option, you're gonna get that. You can opt out at that point and say, I don't wanna get anything because I go to your website or I go to Facebook or I don't drink your water. If somebody opts out, that's fine. We can negotiate. And then the opt-in would be anybody in the community that wants to get, oh, Pam, for instance, lives in Camden. She may want to get that boil water advisory to know whether or not she needs to go out to eat at XYZ restaurant at lunch today. She may not want to eat there if they're under a boil water advisory. So anybody would be able to get that notification as an opt-in, but all of our customers would be under the opt-out. So they'll be at the baseline of if you're in the affected service area. Then we'll give them the pull-down options. I want to be notified anytime there's an outage on St. Simon's, or I want to be notified anytime there's an outage anywhere on your system. So that's a beautiful thing. We give them all the options, and it doesn't cost us any more for what they choose.
Now, you're presenting this to us for informational purposes now?
Yes, sir. So at this point, with it being within,
We're gonna move within the next 30 days or so to activate Everbridge,
yes, sir.
give it a trial, and then make an assessment.
To put it, I suppose the most blunt way I can, we're going to be responsible for that type of expense one way or another because our customers are demanding it. So whether we use Code Red on the county side, whatever they contract with, if they change services, or whether we use Everbridge, I believe we're locked and loaded, we're ready to go.
Did you brief the Everbridge to the county during that meeting?
Yes, sir. The concern that you might have on the EMA side is that their perception is that they're the ones with their finger on the trigger. We're authorized as a public utility to notify our customers because they're our customers. We have the obligation to. So there is some conflict if there's a perception that we have to get Jay Wiggins, the EMA director's permission to send out a notification to our customers, we have the statutory authority to notify our customers.
That was also communicated at the meeting this past week. They understand that because of regulatory requirements, we don't sit on it. And there's been at least one situation where we delayed in some small way notification because we were waiting on blessings from other parties.
The way the previous MOA was written, we would literally have to write out our notification, provide it to the Glynn County EMA director, in this case Jay Wiggins, and then he would authorize the 911 Center director, Steve Usher, to send that out through Code Red. Think about how much time it might take to do that at 2 in the morning, and who we're waking up, who we're trying to communicate with in order to send the notice out. So they understand that, and we, like you say, on the back end, we also have the opportunity to tell them, you have 30,000 subscribers, how about if you bring those subscribers over to our system and we'll play well together? Whether that's something that we offer them as a gratis service, or we have an MOA and we have a shared cost. Honestly, we're going to be paying the cost either way, it would be interesting to see if we could play well together on the data. That way that you as a citizen don't have to sign up for JWSC's Everbridge service and Glynn County's Code Red service. But keep in mind, right now, nobody gets a boil water advisory from Code Red from Glynn County, because we haven't used it since 2000. Well, I don't think we've ever used it.
I do have the fear too that if we teamed up with the county on Code Red, number one, the cost of their product is, what, 60 grand a year plus the much more attractive option for us.
Okay?
So I believe that satisfies the identifying your customers' needs, the need to know, safety-wise. I hope within 30 days to have this rolled out, and we can say that we're in compliance, but we're also doing the customer service by giving them options.
Okay, thank you very much. Next item is Director's update. Before we go there, are there any other items anybody needs to talk about?
I got one I would like to bring up, if you don't mind, that I have to leave here. One was, I've talked to one of our, I guess, individuals who use our services, and the citizen asked, why do we meet in the middle of the day when none of our customers can get out of work to come to our hearing meeting, to have public comment to our meeting? I had no answer. And I know we've been meeting this way ever since we formed.
I don't have any.
You want to start
I
meeting
don't have
in
an
the
answer.
evenings?
Excuse me?
You want to start meeting in the evenings?
Yeah, they asked the question, I didn't have an answer, so I just.
Is that the committee or the commission?
You know, Jay?
I have an answer.
Excuse me, the commission, the regular scheduled meeting. So, and I had no answer for all that, so.
The community calendar was looked at, John, I think we were probably sitting around the table in the old building, and they were saying, well, when do you meet? When do you meet? When do you meet? And everybody met at night, the commission meeting for the city and the county chamber. You start looking at all of the meetings, and it was just a more conducive time to meet.
Right, it's been more conducive for us.
Exactly.
But is it more conducive for our residents, the people, our customers that use it?
It was more, what Jay's saying, it was more conducive to the commissioners.
Right.
Yeah, I understand
Not to
that,
the-
right, but,
Not to the public.
This commission.
right.
Very
Right.
practical.
We are also
But impractical.
obligated to our ratepayers too, so.
The-
That was just a question, so it is something we need to ponder going into next year or something like that, you know, as to what we, just something.
Thank God I have an island planning commission meeting, so I don't have to go to that.
Is that Tuesdays?
Generally, it's on a Tuesday night.
Well, that would
That would work for me.
that would do it.
Because
Well,
my
we
mom
don't-
always wants to go to those silly.
We meet on Thursday, and I know on Thursday night, the county commission have theirs, but they only meet, they meet on the first and third.
That's the need right now. We could move to the second.
Second, yeah, we could, I'm just, it was just a question.
Well, I can tell you, the reason why we originally put, since I've been on the commission, such that we met on the same week,
Right.
was so that the commissioners from the city and the county would have a free week, which they didn't have meetings. That was what that was
I
for.
want to give them guys a free week. Oh,
Can I quote that?
so anyhow, that's just a question just for the general public. And I'm sorry, Jim, I have to leave, I gotta get on the road to head to Dublin, so forgive me.
Have a safe trip.
Yes.
I do have most of the community calendar loaded up, so that's something I did back in December. So you can go through this one calendar, I'll give you, and you can see when all the other agencies have their meetings, and it really starts to turn into a full week. So you'd say, well, this week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and these sometimes change, so don't hold me to it. I'm just going on what their published long-term calendar is. Lions Club. So if we had a commission member that was in the Lions Club, well, they can't meet on Tuesday night. And then the following week, IPC, City Commission, Glynn County Commission. So it's really not anything more complicated than it was just convenient. That's my answer.
Since the,
Why don't you bring it up when You have your committee report?
Okay,
Don't you bring
we can
it up?
add that to the report.
Just, well, yeah, just add a couple of comments that, get some idea from the commissioners, how they feel about it doing it.
On Thursday, I'll do that.
Do it on
I
on
would-
Thursday for the other.
He's got to do a committee report. He just put it in his committee report.
Yeah, that this issue was brought up, a question was brought up in the meeting, and we'd like some feedback from the other commissioners. Good idea.
Since the very beginning, the meetings have been on the first and third Tuesdays, or Thursdays, at 3 o'clock or 2 o'clock,
Yeah.
since I started here. And there has been discussion a couple of times about changing the meeting times, but nothing has ever come of it.
If the commission were to change the meetings, we could change for a while and see what the outcome is, and if we got better public participation outside those special situations that seem to always get people out. And then go back if it doesn't work out, that we've changed any, to make it line up the way it does now. Just a thought.
Okay.
You have to pay the commissioners overtime.
Oh, gee, time and a half. 1.5 times not much. 1.5.
As far as the public comment's concerned, that's hard to beat.
Salary.
All of these meetings, by the way, anytime you see us with the camera on, hopefully within an hour or so, we'll have that prepared and
Well, let's-
posted to the internet. So people do comment on the videos. So everything you say during these meetings is now published to the World Wide Web. So the message does get out.
You're trying to restrict our free speech by the fact that it may not be politically correct.
I have to hold myself to that standard too then.
So the last item is director's update.
I think we covered everything I wanted to cover today. One thing I will say, because it's brought to my attention that we have had a lot of boil water alerts. We're looking into, doing a galvanized steel pipe water line plan. I've set a meeting up, our distribution people. Turns out we've got a lot of old galvanized pipe that isn't even in our GIS system, much more than I dreamed. Orders of magnitude maybe, but a lot more. We're gonna map all that out. We're gonna get the folks from Four Waters to look at the water modeling and tell us whether we need to upsize lines, provide additional water, fire protection, whether we need to hold things the same because there's water quality issues, not enough customers to keep the water moving, those kind of things. But as we get the plan knocked out and look at neighborhoods, neighborhood by neighborhood that have galvanized steel pipe, we're going to be working with Mr. Donaghy to find some cash to buy materials. We're going to start installing with our crews, and at some future point, I hope, third-party contractors, replacement pipe to get rid of all the galvanized steel, which I perceive as our worst in-the-ground liability right now for water service in those boil water alerts. Albeit, we've only got about half of our boil water alerts have been due to actual line breaks because they were galvanized or old worn-out lines. But we'll carve that down significantly, maybe if we can go through and start systematically doing that. And it should lead to less waste, less water leakage, and better pressure and better service for each of those neighborhoods as we make the change. Because in addition to being corroded and that kind of thing, the corrosion in those pipes generally take 2-inch pipes and swell the pipe itself up to the point where you've got an opening like this down the middle. So you're trying to shower with that kind of a service line to a neighborhood, as well as maybe provide a little bit of fire protection in some cases. But by law, we got to have at least 8-inch diameter opening to be able to provide a fire hydrant service. So we got to make some substantial changes to fix that. I'm sure most of these neighborhoods don't have neighborhood fire hydrants, so they're probably not at the same level of fire protection as those neighborhoods who have hydrants. That's my report.
On the, when we're gonna discuss public and private, and when we're gonna discuss coming up with a mechanism to require compliance to our building standards, we need to include comments on fire hydrants, because we have a lot of fire hydrants that are on private,
Substandard,
that probably,
supplied by lines that are too small.
yeah. I mean, that, you know, I could see that getting to be a really long discussion.
I'll try to make sure we bring that up, because it is a concern
It's a problem.
in every city. We're not the lone rangers.
That's all I got, Mr. Chairman. You're the committee chairman.
Our next meeting is this correct? Is our next meeting May the 30th? Do you know?
According to the schedule you provided.
May 30th, okay, so we'll be meeting May the 30th for the next Public Information and Customer Relations Committee meeting at 2 o'clock. And if I can ask you guys to help out Janice on getting the agenda together, if you could have your comments to her as far as what the agenda items need to be by that Friday, the 26th by noon, and she'll be able to get all of that together, and then she can submit it to me and I can look at it, and that way she'll still be able to get it out on the 29th, which gives her the 24-hour notice requirement. I appreciate it.
And I think that's also the meeting that we ought to vet town hall meeting for the EDG. Vet the
The
presentation.
messaging and
Oh,
agenda.
look at the presentation, I see.
Vet meeting,
Review it.
yeah,
Okay, so we need to include that on the agenda.
yes, it needs to be on.
All right. Great. Do we need a motion to close? We
No.
have you and I now.
Yeah, all you gotta do is say the meeting's adjourned.
Okay, meeting's adjourned.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Just in time.